Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Duras Sisters podcast live.
Woohoo!
This is normally a Patreon episode, but we are at the very end of the animated series, as you might be able to tell from the music. And so we decided to share this special episode with all of our listeners.
We are so happy you all are here. Thank you for going live with us to talk about the counterclock incident. Doing this Patreon TAS review has been so cool. I'm so happy that we got to talk about all these quacky, amazing, loopy episodes, and I can't believe that we are finally at the end, Ashlyn.
I know. We've talked about this in our Patreon episodes before, but Rihanna and I first saw the animated series way after we'd seen all of our Star Trek. We'd seen everything else, and then only in like 2019, we were like, we should probably watch the animated series. So we watched it together, usually while we were feeling good.
Yeah.
And then deciding to rewatch all of this together again for the Patreon has been so much fun, as Rihanna said. And it's just been amazing to pick apart these episodes because who knows what's going to happen?
Literally. Anything can happen in these episodes, and anything does, especially in this one.
Yeah. Okay, well, Rihanna, before we dive into the actual episode, we are going to do a segment that we always do at the beginning of our Patreons with the animated series. So, Rihanna, here's the question. What was the weirdest part of this episode for you?
I mean, again, this is a question that we always think is kind of funny because the animated series is weird in general. And I think that this week, though, it just has to be the babies. The babies in these episodes, the way that they are transforming, and there's no visual aging. Like, there's just 1 minute they pop up and they're a teenager, and then the next scene that they cut to, they're a baby or like can't reach the console. And so not even the babies themselves, but just the animation and the way that they like pop into existence. There was one point where A-Rex was there as a baby, and then the next shot he was just gone. And I was like, did they just whisk him off like quickly because he wasn't able to perform his task anymore? I don't know. I just thought it was fantastic and so bizarre.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk more about the timing of the de-aging because that was super weird.
Yeah. Ashlyn, what about you? What was the most bizarre part of this episode for you?
Well, first of all, I want to say hello from Australia, or hello to Australia from Never Otter even. Good to see you. Thanks for watching. The weirdest part of the episode for me was the character, not necessarily the whole character of Robert April, but the fact that he was obsessed with not being allowed to continue in Starfleet. So he's 75, which means he's at the mandatory retirement age for Starfleet, which we've never heard of.
What?
And there's a part of the episode where like him and his wife are beginning to de-age, and he's like, oh my gosh, that's the first thing he thinks of is, the younger I get, that means I don't have to retire. And I'm like, that's what you're thinking about? Is that you can keep working?
Yeah, I am very excited to talk about this part of the episode as well, Ashlyn. I think we brought up some really meaty points in this episode already, so like I'm very excited and very good choice.
Me too. Yes, thank you. I also real quick want to point out your Star Trek wall back there. It looks very beautiful. I haven't seen that yet.
Thank you. It's got like all of it. It's got my posters from Mission Chicago. There's more up there, so everyone can take a look. Yeah, I'm very happy. It's coming along nicely. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All I have today are my Tribbles, Kirk and McCoy.
Your collection,
so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I thought I saw Lursa over
there. Oh
yeah.
I had to bring her a little closer to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm really glad that Never Otter even is talking about Robert April's voice being a little weird, voiced by James Doohan, which we've talked about in our other Patreon episodes. That like it's so funny to me how James Doohan is kind of like carrying the show with all of these extras he's being. And so, yeah, I thought his voice was a little bit bizarre as well. Like he chose a very interesting tone.
It sounded like an alien. Like it was a very weird voice. Yeah.
Like, is that how he thinks like maybe older people sound? I don't know. I was like, sir, let's try a little bit different one.
So before we go on with the episode, I also want to introduce the last thing that we're adding to the live stream, which is a toast. And so along those same lines, I want to do a toast to James Doohan. Thank you for
Yes.
voicing all the voices that they didn't want to hire anyone special for. Thank
Cheers to
you.
you.
Oh
No
my
matter how
gosh.
weird it was, he would do it.
I don't think he had any, like, there was no vision or direction on the voices. It was just choose.
Do a voice. Yeah.
All right, Rihanna, do you want to give us a little plot summary about this episode?
Sure thing. So we are again heading to, as Kirk calls it, Babel, as I call it, Babel.
I call it Babel.
Your choice. Some people choose different ways to call it, but they are returning Ambassador Robert, or not Ambassador, Commodore Robert April. They're on a mission, essentially, to bring him to Babel to celebrate his
Babel.
retirement. To Babel.
Sorry, I'm just gonna say the opposite of whatever way you say
Yeah,
it.
perfect. So we got both sides.
Yeah.
Along the way, some crazy shit happens as usual. This episode immediately starts to fall apart when, first of all, they're seeing this beautiful nebula, I believe it is. It's a beta Nairobi supernova is about to go nova, I guess, and it's a very beautiful sight. And so I love seeing it because it opens up the screen. It's like so beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, yes, the 70s animation. It really is gorgeous. Like, I love the coloring.
Donut.
Yes, the sparkly
like
donut.
Beautiful donut.
It's gorgeous. And so then there's the ship heading towards them at warp 36, and it is going astronomical speeds. Turns out it's this lady talking backwards. They flip it, then they get pulled into her universe because they're trying to slow her down from combusting in the nova. They're in this backwards universe where they start aging backwards. It's essentially Benjamin Button, but in space. And the very kind woman from her universe is able to get them back. Her name is Kelly. Nope, what's her name? Kelly 5.
Yeah, Kelly 5.
Or Kylie 5. She is just amazing. I love her. Anyway, she is able to use her ship to
No, Carla 5. Sorry.
Carla 5. Even better. Carla 5. Thank you.
Yeah.
Able to use her ship to send them forward or send them back into their present universe, but everyone's almost a baby. And so Robert April and his wife have to save the day.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah. It's very classic. And I love that it's like, because I mean, this I assume was canceled, this show, after, like, this was not meant to be the last episode.
There's only 6 episodes in season 2. They clearly haven't had money this entire time that they've been doing the animated series. And so I think finally they're like, no one's watching it. Let's stop it. But I think this is a strong note to end on. And they clearly knew it was going to be the last episode. I feel like they had all the writers awake and like doused with water so they could write this sober.
Yeah, exactly.
This right away, I feel like this story is very coherent. And good job, guys. I'm happy for them. I love
when we actually know what's going on in an animated episode. That overjoys me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so let's talk about Robert April. Let's just go for it. He has been brought up recently because he's in the first episode and like 5th episode of Strange New Worlds. He is the first captain of the Enterprise, and I am so glad that they brought back his character in Strange New Worlds and pulled him out of the animated series, because I think it's fascinating to know who the first captain of the Enterprise was. Before this episode, we assumed it was Pike, and so this adds even more background to the most beloved ship. Something I thought was interesting is that he said he was in the shipyards when they built it in San Francisco, which like is such a difference from the Kelvinverse, because Kirk saw it in Iowa.
In Riverside, Iowa, sure.
So something about his dad dying really changed the universe there. They're like, we got to do it in Iowa.
For his dad. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I love Robert April's character in any of these timelines. And so it's really cool, like you said, to get this backstory and everything. And also like about the debate of like what race the character plays or the actor plays. It's like so ridiculous. Let's just like literally he's a character and he doesn't have to be a certain race. So like calm down is my thoughts on that. Like it's just so amazing that we're bringing a character back.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Totally agree with you. I think it's a ridiculous argument that
Yeah,
is happening.
and it
Absolutely
makes
ridiculous.
yeah, and it makes TAS more canon, which is just amazing and what we always want. So like we should be celebrating that.
Yes. So I also want to bring up Sarah April, which is Robert April's wife. She is voiced by Nichelle Nichols. I think a fantastic voice
Yes.
actress. Like
Yes.
she's doing everything for Miss April here, for Mrs. April, Dr. April.
Yes.
So she has even more mysterious lines because this was also a very strange part. She said that she was the first medical officer on a ship with warp drive.
Yes.
So
And
like
she made a lot of the equipment that McCoy has in his sick bay.
so not only is she amazing, that means she's like 100 years old.
Yes. I mean, we know with like future technology, people can live longer and humans do have a longer lifespan. But I also think the Aprils are really taking care of themselves. They seem really like fit for 75. And I'm just like, way to go.
Well, I don't think she's 75 because like
Yeah.
I'm just saying it like the NX Enterprise in the show Enterprise was capable of warp 5
Yeah,
and that
true.
was in like the 2160s.
That was quite a long time ago.
So
Yeah.
she's ancient. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Like obviously there's no like this does not
This is
work
just
with the
TAS.
timeline.
Yeah.
But I love it. And so here's to Mrs. Dr. Sarah
Yes.
April.
Thank you.
An icon.
I love her.
Okay. Yeah, so this is also where we're talking about the mandatory retirement. I thought it was really cool that they brought these two characters together on the Enterprise. Yeah, I don't know. I really like
Yeah.
their addition in this episode. We've talked about in before how sometimes animated series brings in new characters and they're 100% forgettable.
Or their Harry
Um,
Bem Bem. Yeah, Ashland has a vendetta, or should we call it a
Anna,
Bemdetta?
I'm like, I'm having war flashbacks. I can't think about Harry Ben Bem right now. Um, terrible character. Um,
Sorry, I set us off the rails. Go ahead.
Yeah. So but I think their addition in this episode really is awesome and brings a lot of like interesting dynamics into the episode, especially when they're talking about Babel or Babel, because it makes me think about Sarek and the episode Journey to Babel. And so I have expectations right away that this is going to be a like conference of
Mhm.
higher leaders and everything, but that's not what happens.
Yeah, I love that with animated series, you're always going to get a little twist and it's going to use a beloved story we know and then turn it a little bit into something different and fun and just like something that is literally out of this world that we wouldn't really think of otherwise. So I think that's really cool. And also, I love what you're saying about April because I love the chemistry between him and Kirk. Like it's so cool to see this similarly we get with Pike and April in the first episode of Strange New Worlds, but it's so fantastic to see the two of them have a little bit of banter, talk about their old times, and he's like, "Oh yeah, remember when we saw the supernova last time, Jim?" And he's like, "Sure do, Robert," or whatever. I'm like, "Great guys!" Like this is just fun that the animated series gets to add in a bit of this because usually they don't have the time for it. They're trying to put too much plot in or not enough plot somehow.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, So I had some qualms with the ship that we see. So there's a futuristic ship come in, fly, zoom in right towards the Enterprise, and then try and go into the supernova that's happening. It's just infuriating to me that Kirk tries to stop the ship because it's clearly an advanced ship. It's going warp 36, which should be impossible. I love that. I love it so much. It should not be possible to go that fast. But clearly, like they're on a mission. And then when they're able to translate the message that she sends, it's literally like, don't fuck with me. I'm trying to
Yeah.
save my life?
Yes.
And I just thought it was really presumptuous of Kirk and kind of dickish, honestly, that he was trying to stop this ship and slow them down with the tractor beam.
Yeah, it could have completely probably torn them apart, or it could have completely thrown off her mission. He has no idea what's at stake here, and he just makes assumptions. And this is where Kirk's like downfall is as a captain, I feel like, is to the most part his assumptions are correct or his gut feeling is correct, but at this point in time it wasn't, and that made it really complex for Kelsey. Why do I keep wanting to call her Kelsey?
Carla.
Carla 5, of course. Yeah.
Yes,
So
of
it
course.
makes it difficult for Carla 5, and I just hate that. Like, can we just assume that like they've got it under control? You don't have to help every person you see, Kirk.
Well, I just don't like the assumption that if you're in space, like I don't know, it seems like Kirk, because he's in the Federation and is like a captain, that he's going to be more advanced than every other species he encounters, and that's just not true. It's also
Yeah,
not true of the original series. Like this is not. I think this is just like a quick way to get them into the supernova, writing wise.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it does feel on brand for Kirk because he sometimes does want to jump in and save people without asking too many questions.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so they get pulled into the supernova, and Carla 5 was talking backwards. Now everything is going backwards. And I just have to applaud the art direction, shockingly,
Yes.
in this episode at this part. Like, I've never said that before.
No.
But the like contrast of having the black stars and the white background, white space is really cool. I thought the
Gorgeous.
ship design was really cool, just really memorable, like visuals that stick in your mind.
Especially when they're in like the stellar cartography room or whatever, they have that gigantic map that's like a table, and then it shows like their universe and then flips it to our universe and shows the inverse. And it's like so cool. Yeah, I was really applauding that as well. Design wise, until we get to the babies, they were really good.
Well, Rihanna, shall I say here's to the designers of this episode. Beautiful
Hey, good
artwork,
job.
everybody.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
way to go out with a bang.
Mm-hmm. Nice supernova pun, Rihanna.
Thank you. That one was unintended. So
Amazing. Okay, so from this point on, Rihanna, what were your thoughts about how everything was running backwards, the Carla planet, all that stuff?
the Carla planet. Um, I thought it was so fascinating that it was right on top of Earth in like its own universe, and that I have so many notes here, sorry. Um, that it's called Arette, and I thought it was going to be like backwards of Earth or something, but they didn't want to be that on the nose, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but I love that like the concept of this running backwards and the Benjamin button of it all, is really cool and interesting, especially when they get on the planet and they're so fascinated by it. Spock is saying like, "Oh, it looks like that baby is your father," or whatever. And I just love it because then Kirk is like, "Yes, this is very fascinating, but we have to like focus here," because he also wants to like ask more questions about it, but because it is so foreign to us to think of anything going backwards to what we know. And I think it's similar to when like Cisco's talking to the prophets and they're like, "What is time? What is linear? Like, we don't know this," so it's kind of similar with us.
Yeah, Kirk does this explanation like for the dumb audience members, and I still can't wrap my head around it. Like I'm the dumb audience member
Yeah.
because he talks about like, okay, so they go down the planet and it's Carl 4 is her son. I just love that. I love her son is Carl 4 and he's like much older. He's probably like 70 or 80
Mhm.
because that's how everything's backwards.
Yeah.
And then there's like a baby in a crib, and Kirk's like, "Who's that?" And Spock's like, "Her father." And Kirk's like,
Yeah.
"Oh."
Yeah.
So the
Whoa.
father's a baby, which
Mhm.
honestly, like, that'd be kind of nice to like end up because you're like, "Oh, I forgot my knowledge."
And then I'm just a baby. Yeah. It could be a little frightening, but I guess it depends on how, like, the process goes.
Yeah, I was just thinking that their number system of the names maybe was to help everybody track down like the order of the ancestors. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many questions about how this all works, but that's why, the crew almost gets pulled into this conversation. They're like, "We're so fascinated, we wanna know more." Um, but this is something that I also love so much about the animated series, is the fact that they will give us just these snippets of random, like you're saying with the characters as well, with the plots, like these random planets or universes or scenarios. It kinda reminds me of, like, TNG when they have that like one pocket universe where Data plays poker and you're like, "What?" Like that's so cool. And then it's never heard or talked about again. Similar, TAS does that like every single episode, and it always like I always want to know more, but I'm happy with the world that they built. And yeah, I thought this one was really well done. And
Yeah.
even with the weirdness of the babies, because animated series always needs a weirdness part to balance out.
So I really wish that this could have been a 45, 50-minute long like live action episode
Yeah.
because of the intricacies and everything with the backwards universe. I thought was awesome and
Mhm.
deserved more time and explanation. Um so yeah, I guess let's talk about the babies now at the end of the episode.
Yeah, let's do it. Um,
Uh,
well, I guess the first time they notice that everyone is aging backwards is the flower has come back to life, and there's this thing with the flower. Mrs. April Sarah is very, very excited about this flower that she got that lives only a couple hours. She said it was a seedling this morning, and now it's like fully budded and it's going to die soon. And then they're reversing the universe, and literally Sarah is like, Robert, look at my flower. And he's essentially like, shut up about your flower, dear. We don't have time for this. But she's like, no, bitch, listen. Like, it's actually really important. And like, it is because the flower, of course, is coming back to life.
Yeah, I was wondering in the beginning why she had the flower, and she makes this whole big deal at the beginning of the episode that her flower only has a 4-hour lifespan.
Yeah.
To me, as a terrible gardener, I feel like all flowers have a 4-hour lifespan. And so I wasn't that impressed. I was like, oh, her flower, when it's out of
Sure,
a pot,
cool.
dies immediately. So, like
Yeah,
all other
same.
flowers, yeah. I'm doing something wrong clearly if they're dying that quickly. Um, but then of course when we're in the reverse universe, that's how it's obvious that everything is reversing
Yeah.
in time. I just didn't really like that it was a flower because it made me think of like some sexual things that I didn't
Yeah.
want to think of with Mrs. Dr. April. So
Right? Because she's like, ooh. And I'm like, okay, just stop.
she's like,
Like,
my flower's blooming. Like, girl, you
girl, we
talk about
got
that
it.
in your quarters later with
Yeah.
Dr. April or with Mr. April. Yeah.
Mr. April. Yeah, exactly. So that was interesting. I also just again with the mechanics, like so their brains are working in reverse where the crew are starting to not remember how to do their jobs or like what the buttons are for. At one point Sulu is becoming a child and he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do these buttons do? And then immediately after Ahura is also becoming a baby and she's like, Sir, I'm sorry, I don't understand how to do this. And so Spock is immediately having to take over two stations as usual. We've got
As
Spock pulling
usual.
the weight as
Yep.
teenage Kirk is like, haha. And they never gave us an answer. This is like what made me so mad about this episode is I always want to know like the exact age Kirk was when he became a captain and when he graduated Starfleet. And we were gonna get those answers, but Kirk didn't answer Spock, so we don't know.
Well, you can go on Memory Alpha. I've been writing a lot of fan fiction. I've had the Kirk
The Kirk
Memory Alpha page
timeline.
open the entire time I'm writing. I don't remember how old he was, but I
Mhm.
was also on tenterhooks waiting for him to say, and then he loses his memory.
Yeah.
So I do have some questions that I don't know the answer to about that because it seems like every year you age down, you erase everything that you've learned that entire
In that
year.
year. Yeah, I think
And
so.
so it's just from like a mechanical point of view, it's really funny because don't you go through Starfleet like in 4 years? So shouldn't Sulu be like, I can still drive, and then he can't
Yeah.
drive, but he's like, I can still fix the console,
I
like
still know what this button is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know. I also didn't like how rapidly they de-age them. I thought it would be cooler if they started to de-age more clearly when
Yeah.
they're like down on the planet with the Carls and Carlas.
I guess this is because I thought that they would age more in the planet, but I guess because they're accelerating so quickly in the ship that's what like builds the acceleration of the aging. I don't really know. I was very confused. Yeah, the again, I don't think the animated series people really cared that much about how intricate the science was or accurate.
No, this is again why I want a longer episode because I
Yeah,
want to I want to talk about this more.
I want to see this world in detail. Lower
Yeah.
decks, please, someone.
Well, so you mentioned Spock, Rihanna, and it's inappropriate if we don't toast to Spock. So
Oh
thank you
yeah,
for
always.
always covering the consoles you're not assigned to.
And he knows how to do every single person's job on the ship, pretty much. So
Yeah, no problem.
just no big deal. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question, Rihanna. So obviously the two Aprils are the oldest ones on the ship,
Mhm.
and so Robert April looks fine. Also,
Oh
when
my
he's
god.
de-aged,
Ashlyn,
I would thought you
why?
Sarah April also looks lovely. I think
Sarah looks nice,
they both
but
look great.
I would never say he looks fine.
I don't know. Just everybody look him up. Robert April. So they're both de-aged, which I love that they're here together, like married power couple on the
Yeah.
ship. Married power couple goes to backwards universe. Married couple both gets de-aged together. Rihanna, what would you do if you were in this situation with your partner? You both get de-aged when you're 75 slash 140. And what do you do? Because once they return to the correct universe, basically, I should, oh God, they like activate a star
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get
yeah.
back.
It's just crazy mechanic stuff. It's
Sketchy,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, they like activate a dead star in the opposite universe, and then use a dying star in the prime universe, explode it, and then they go through the nebula. It's fine. The supernova. Everyone's babies, and so in order to restore them back to their own age, they have the last transporter buffer, which is like the
Yes.
last hard save you did on your video game. You know, you can just
Totally.
reload them. Don't think about it.
That's so
Beam them,
true.
beam them up, Scotty.
Their
Hopefully, you
patterns are
know.
always there.
Yeah, last autosave was 12 minutes ago. Hope that's the right molecules are all there.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so Sarah and Robert are de-aged. Would you and your partner choose to stay the same age or to go back to your older age for the rest of your lives?
Wow. I mean, this is such an interesting question, and I am frankly surprised that Robert chooses to stay the age that that he is, because I think I would take it. I think I would be like, yeah, I'm already how I don't know how much they aged, but it seems like
They seem like they're
20
in their
years.
I was gonna. Oh, that's very. I was gonna gonna say like 30 or 40. It seems like they're
Oh,
like
yeah.
mid 30s, like Kirk's
True.
age.
Yeah, that's true, and I mean, April, the way that he says it is like, "Oh, it would give us a whole chance to go back and, like," or they're talking about essentially going back and, like, redoing their lives, and I don't think I would look at it that way. I would just look at it like, "Wow, more adventures," like, and I have a
Yeah,
healthy body. Not that they aren't healthy, and but it's just like my muscles can do more stuff and, all of that stuff. So I think I would definitely take it. I don't know if that's selfish, but I would.
I
What
would
about you, Ashley?
100% take it, especially
Yeah.
with my partner. Like,
Yeah.
duh, it'd be so sad if one of us was de-aged and the other
Yeah.
one was gonna like die in a couple years. Like that would be awful.
Yeah.
But no, you're both de-aged. You both like go on a second honeymoon, like go
Totally.
party. Especially Robert April is obsessed with working in Starfleet. So he's gonna go back to work,
Yes.
but and it's very like we have no idea if Starfleet officers are getting paid at this time. But for me, like if
Probably
we were
not.
in this stage of like living and you had already earned your retirement and then you didn't have to work for the rest of your life and you're like
Yeah.
40, like bro,
Perfect. Yeah.
there's no question. Yeah.
Literally. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Like,
Yeah,
it's just great. Yeah.
never ever even brings up. It was like the conversation Picard has in Rascals.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, do you just like let yourself go? I feel like
Grow up. Yeah.
they're like younger, so it's a
Mhm.
little different, but
Yeah,
still.
I would not wanna go back to childhood. I don't wanna go through, like, puberty again. No, thanks.
It seems like I mean, we're not quite there yet, but like mid-30s seems very stable.
Yeah,
And
seems solid. I hope.
I'd be fine with that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a
Well,
great question, Ashlyn. Thank you.
Rihanna, so I have a couple more questions for you
Mhm.
as we're ending up the review of this episode. First of all, I'm wondering who is your crewman of the week? We totally stole this from Strange New Pod. So Rihanna, who is your crewman of the week?
Oh god. I'm gonna have to go with Robert April. I
Yeah.
think that I mean, Spock was starting to be young enough that he wasn't able to help as much, and Robert April said, "I do outrank you, Spock. Like, I will take command." He just immediately does it, and that's why Starfleet reconsiders his retirement, even though he's 75, which I think they shouldn't. I think they should let him retire, no matter how much he doesn't want to. But this is kind of Picard esque as well. Anyway, yeah, I think Robert April did a swimming job. Ashlyn,
Yeah.
who is your crewman of the week?
Well, I also just want to add Robert April has a great sentence because it's such a short episode, not as long as speech.
Yeah.
It's a great sentence at the end that says, the Enterprise, let me see if I wrote it down. No, I didn't. But essentially, like, the Enterprise feels like home, and it like nothing feels better than sitting in the captain's chair. And Kirk is like, damn
Yeah.
straight.
He's like, correct.
And this is how Pike feels, and this is how
How
every
Picard
captain
feels.
feels like when they're in their prime, and
Mhm.
like their ship. It's not like the Stargazer that like exploded.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
Enterprise.
The brand. Every star
Man.
ship captain has their current ship that they are home at, and then their ship that haunts them.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Chakotay's like the Maquis. He's not the captain. Anyway, yeah. So great answer, Rihanna. Robert April, like some people like that just shouldn't retire if they still have the mental capacity to keep working.
yeah.
Humans can live till probably like 140
Yeah.
in the future. So he's only halfway done. Hey.
Woo woo. Good job, Bob. Proud of him.
For me, my crewman of the week, without a doubt, is Baby Spock. Period.
Baby Spock.
Hmm. He kind of looks like Kirk back there, except he's Spock.
Yeah.
He's about this big,
I
and
actually have a Spock.
oh my gosh,
That is
yeah,
your Kirk.
yeah. Spock, because he's de-aging so much while he's at the console. Eventually, he just ends up standing in the chair as a little
Yeah.
baby, and then at the end
Still
of the
trying to work.
episode, yeah, he's like trying to reach. And then at the end of the episode, when they're in the Prime universe again, he's standing next to Robert April, like
Yeah.
so tiny next to
Yeah.
the chair. And
Oh, and her eyes like
bless him.
cuddling Sarah April. I'm like, what?
And Kirk is like crawling on the ground, like banging some blocks. It's very
I'm like, did
dystopian.
some babies like okay, did they have any baby safety? Because I feel like a Starship Enterprise is not like baby proofed. And so
No.
like did all those babies just roam around until they could get every crewman back in the buffer?
Well, you know what I was kind of thinking is that that's why Robert April like set his wife off, because I think he wanted her to like corral the literal children, because that's like
Yeah.
what, like
400
200,
or what do you say?
yeah,
No.
like 400 people or something on the
Yeah.
Enterprise. They're all babies.
That's too many, especially in engineering. That's so dangerous.
Like I've worked in nurseries that have like 20 people per
Mhm.
like 3 workers, and that
Yeah,
was
20
a
babies.
nightmare. Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine
Imagine
401.
430. Yeah.
Yeah. Baby. Thank you. Never utter even. Yes, now I will never have that
Be
leave my
stuck in my
mind.
head forever.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we have a couple more things to do to finish up this whole series, for the whole animated series. So, Rihanna, we've talked about every single episode, and I am wondering, off the top of your head, what was the weirdest part of the whole series for you?
Um, like there's different ways of interpreting the word weird. So I
Yeah.
feel like mine is like weird parentheses affectionate. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
love how weird it is, and mine is gonna have to be Giant Spock from the Infinite Vulcan.
Okay.
This is a classic episode, of course, that Lower Decks brought back and had a reference about, but also just the insanity of the episode, the fact that Giant Spock gets to meld with Tiny Spock with one hand. Again, about talking about tiny Spocks, there's a lot of them in this series. I just loved the Infinite Vulcan as an episode, but I thought that was massively weird, pun intended. Ashlyn, what was your weirdest part of the entirety of the animated series?
So weird. All the Spocks we get are amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, mine was in the episode The Magics of Magus 2, which you might not remember off the top of your head because it's super weird. But basically, they go to like a magic planet, and Kirk gets magic powers, and he like shoots the villains with like a rainbow beam. And then at the end of the episode, Kirk and Spock literally go drinking with Satan.
Literally.
Like
Like
they
we cannot make
literally,
this shit up.
yeah, you can't make it up. I have like a meme of them
It's
drinking together.
I don't always drink.
But when I do, it's thanks to Satan. Stay evil, my friends. Like, I just,
But
mwah.
well, and Satan is so cool. Also, like, just gotta say, he's awesome, and
Yeah.
he frees them from like getting Salem witch trialed. So that's always nice.
Satan turns out to be really misunderstood. So I love this journey
Yeah.
for him.
Absolutely.
Okay, Rihanna. I think so. We both have thought about our three favorite episodes from all of the animated series. What was your number three favorite episode?
My number 3 was Eye of the Beholder, the Human Zoo. I loved that episode first time I saw it.
Wow.
Undercover episode for sure. Very
Undercover.
deep
Like
cut.
what?
Mostly because of that tiny little baby zoo holder guy. Eye of the
Ooh.
Beholder. That is precious. Ashlyn,
Okay.
what is number 3 for you?
Counterclock incident. I
Wow.
really, really
Okay.
liked this episode. I
Okay.
maybe I didn't express it enough in this review, but I thought it was awesome, and I thought one of the higher quality episodes.
Yes. Just like, yeah, the detail in the episode.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Nice, Ashlyn.
Okay, number two.
Number 2 is has to be the jihad, the very
Eh?
shirt that sword exists for. The very episode, I love the episode the jihad. I think it's absolutely beautiful, so fun, so many different fun characters to add. We've got lava flow, we've got like intense sea. Oops, sorry, that's my cat eating. We've got betrayal. Like, it's just got everything, and it's a really well structured plot with a lot of beautiful animation. So it's gonna have to go number 2 for me.
Rihanna. The Jihad is my number two as well.
Yes, sword stands rise.
hmm I have a sticker on my car that Rihanna designed. It's that picture of Sword, and he's saying, "This planet really gets on your nerves because, ah,
It's
he's
just
become my
the truth.
favorite animated character, maybe tied with A-Rex. I have a passion for A-Rex.
Hey Rex, I
Um,
should draw next, honestly. He's
I
amazing.
I just love the Jihad. I love that it's like the Avengers in with Star Trek characters,
Yeah,
very like random, never heard of Star Trek characters, but in 20 minutes we fall in love with them and we are brutally betrayed by
yeah.
one horrible, horrible person, horrible bird creature.
Hmm.
Okay, Rihanna, what's your favorite episode of the animated series?
I wonder.
Yeah.
M- I'm sure our long-term listeners are going to be shocked that mine is the yesteryear. It is the Spock-centric episode of the animated series, shall we say. It's got time travel. It's got baby Spock again, teenage Spock, whatever. It's got a teddy bear. It's got Chaya. Like, it's got family drama. It's got everything for me. I think it's also beautifully done. It helps Spock's character grow a lot. Chef's kiss all around. Ashlyn, number 1.
So sometimes I feel like it's a detriment that we're sisters when we do this podcast because we agree too much.
Yeah.
Yesteryear is also my
Yesteryear.
favorite episode.
I'm not mad about it though. Honestly, like, it's so good that it deserves to be
Pretty
our
much
number
any
1.
episode that has the Guardian of Forever is the
Oh,
best
automatically. Yeah.
episode of any series. Like,
Yeah.
you got it. Yeah.
Yep, there it
Um,
is.
yeah, I also think that it is the best written one out of all of them. It has the
Yeah.
most intrigue because everyone loves Spock. A sad and interesting fact is that the young actor who played Spock, they actually used the lines that he sent in for his audition. And he didn't get to re-record. He thought he was going to, and he had regret later because he was like, I could have done better, but they were like so cheap that
Wow.
they were like, we're taking your lines. So if you're wondering why it's like kind of strange acting from young Spock,
That's
that's
why.
why.
Thank you for
Yep.
bringing that in because I always just think of "Go, Chaya." No. And I'm like, "What?"
What now?
Say that again.
Yeah. Yeah. And also all of we might both be biased because pretty much everything from yesteryear is canonized now,
Yeah.
which is
Mhm.
awesome. It's just
So
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
So that actually brings me to an interesting question, Rihanna, which I was wondering, and we only have like 7-ish minutes left.
Mhm.
I'm wondering what place for you does the animated series have in the franchise, in the Star Trek world? What where is it? What's going on?
Yeah, so I think I was surprised when finding out that people don't consider TAS canon and that the animated series is not a part of Star Trek history, quote unquote, because it was like the second Star Trek to ever exist. It was created by Gene Roddenberry and had Star Trek all over it. Like, it is the pinnacle Star Trek if they can just animate things and be kind of unhinged, you know? Like, it really is Star Trek in its free-flowing 70s style. So I think that it is absolutely a part of the canon, and I think it's been brilliant that shows like Lower Decks and um, Strange New Worlds have been bringing these back in, and the fact that also we get to explore more of these beloved characters. Like, hell yeah, I'm so for that. I love the fact that Kirk, Spock, McCoy, everyone gets expansions on their characters, and the fact we get to see Aichaya when we just hear about him briefly in the episode Journey to Babel in the original series. That's insane to me. Like, I think it's so cool how the writers are able to take stuff from the original series, turn it on its head, make it this really cool show that we can all love and laugh at the same time. You know, it's beloved because it's bad and great in the same breath. And I just find myself like loving it more because people think it's not the canon. That makes me kind of laugh because I'm like, there are some weird stuff that's a part of canon, like a lot of weird, like B plots in TNG episodes or Voyager. Like, don't look at me. You know, you know what episodes I'm talking
I
about.
can't
So
even
like,
bring up what you're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my answer, and I think it's a beautiful question, Ashlyn. I'm super curious about your answer as well.
I'm with you. I do think so. Like facts that I already talked about in this episode, how Sarah April said that she was around in the first warp engine, um, like vehicle, or like vessel. I
Mhm.
think that kind of stuff you can't take too seriously,
Yeah,
because now Enterprise was written 30 years later.
yeah,
There's never, there's no way they could have made that happen. And so I feel like that kind of stuff, you just have to understand that it's a part of our larger world and it's
totally.
okay. It's totally
Yes,
fine.
yeah.
I think the characters that they created are like really original and
Mhm.
awesome in this show. And I think it's great. Never Otter even has commented, agreed, perhaps it was looked down upon because it was a Saturday morning cartoon. And I
Very good
do
point.
agree. I know that just from talking to people who grew up in this era, that there were not a lot of cartoons that were like of high quality. Growing up, it all had kind of the same animation style. We really get like 90s, like late 80s, 90s is when cartoons are really picking up and becoming mainstream. And so
Mhm.
I think that it would definitely be looked upon as a child's cartoon, whereas now we have Lord X, which is obviously like
Yeah.
adult humor, but
And there's so many adult cartoons now that it's sort of normalized at this point.
yeah, I mean, we have anime, like a whole genre of adult
Yeah.
cartoons. So I think that's a great comment for sure. And it should be canon.
Yeah.
So, just to segue into that, we only have 3 minutes left, but I want to announce a couple of exciting things for those of you who are not following all of the breaking and amazing news coming out of the San Diego Comic Con. Um, Basically, we are going to see the return of some animated series characters. Kukaklan, who was in the last episode we talked about, he's like a flying dragon lizard
Yeah,
guy.
Mayan, Inca god combined
Yeah, so
amalgam.
we
Yeah.
know that he's returning, and so I encourage you to rewatch the animated series and then to listen to all of our podcasts on the Patreon, so you have a really fresh take when Lower Deck slides in with those really really niche references.
Yeah.
Um, and then also we have a new series upcoming on our main feed and on the Patreon. It's Rihanna's series, so take it away, Rihanna. What are we doing after Death Fakeouts?
After Death Fakeouts, we are going to be covering all of the first officers and the position of first officer in Star Trek. Yee! I'm so excited. Cheers to that.
Yeah, I cheers.
Cheers to all of this, honestly.
Yeah, all of this is so, so exciting. I just love that Star Trek is rocking and rolling as usual.
Always.
And then our Patreon series, as far as that goes, we just finished with the animated series, and we are going to be returning next week to some trivia between Rihanna
Yes.
and myself. So look forward to that. And that's just a little palate cleanser because then the week after, we are jumping right into reviewing Lower Deck Season 2. So you definitely want to stick around. You definitely want to donate any amount per month. Really, Rihanna?
Yeah.
You can donate $1 a
You
month
can,
and
definitely.
get those podcasts for
Yeah, we have
a
like so
dollar?
many up. So like gotta
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah, gotta do it. We're thrilled to be going over that. We have things like the shorts coming up. We've been talking about different series we might also review on the Patreon. So Thank you for sticking with us. Rihanna, thank you for reviewing Counterclock Incident with me today. It has been so fun going live with us. I want to thank Never Odd or Even, Beverly Cole, Michelle Hurd, who I know is watching. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you for your comments. We are just so happy to have you all as listeners.
Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And catch us on the Patreon, catch us on our main feed, and live longer and prosper, not or prosper.
Do